The wedding hall was silent except for the sharp click of her heels. Every eye turned as she walked down that aisle in emerald silk, not white, not lace, but something that demanded attention in a room full of people who thought they knew exactly how this day would end. The bride stood frozen at the altar, her veil trembling. The groom, Lee Do-yun, heir to the most dangerous crime family in Seoul, had his hand halfway to his weapon before he even saw her face. And in that moment, everything his father had planned, everything his mother had orchestrated, everything that was supposed to secure his throne shattered like glass hitting marble. Because Zena Daniels wasn't supposed to exist, she wasn't supposed to be there, and she definitely wasn't supposed to be holding marriage documents with his name on them. But here's what nobody tells you about power, about legacy, about the kind of families that operate in shadows. Sometimes the most dangerous threat isn't the bullet you see coming, it's the woman who walks in when you're pointing the gun somewhere else. If you want to see how a single woman dismantled an empire built on blood and tradition, hit that subscribe button and buckle up, because this story doesn't go where you think it does. Three days before the wedding, Lee Do-yun stood in the rain watching them lower his father into the ground. The funeral was a spectacle. Black umbrellas stretched across the hillside cemetery like a murder of crows, and beneath them stood every person who had ever feared, respected, or owed something to Lee Tae-jin. Politicians in designer suits, businessmen with Yakuza tattoos hidden under Italian silk, women who wept theatrically for a man who had never been faithful to anyone, including himself. Do-yun felt nothing. His face was stone, his posture perfect, his black suit immaculate despite the downpour. At 28, he'd been groomed for this moment his entire life. His father had made sure of that, through lessons delivered with fists when words failed, through tests that involved real bullets and real consequences. "You look just like him," someone murmured as they passed, and Do-yun wanted to put a bullet between their eyes for the insult. His mother, Park Min-so, stood beside him in traditional mourning clothes, her face a porcelain mask of appropriate grief. She hadn't loved her husband, nobody who knew them believed she had, but she'd loved what he represented: power, status, control over an empire that stretched from Seoul's glittering hotels to Manila's shipping docks to Los Angeles's underground gambling rings. "We have a problem," she said quietly as the ceremony ended, her voice barely audible over the rain. "The succession?" Do-yun asked, already knowing the answer. "The council meets tomorrow night," Min-so said, her fingers tight on her black handbag. "Your uncles are already positioning themselves. They're saying you're too young, too Western educated, too soft. They want to divide your father's territories among themselves." Do-yun's jaw tightened. His uncles were ambitious hyenas who'd waited years for this opportunity. They'd never attempted a direct challenge while his father lived, but now the throne was empty and blood meant nothing compared to weakness. "The engagement," his mother continued, "Park Ji-won, the merger with her father's organization, it's the only thing that will secure enough votes. Her family controls the ports in Busan, the political connections in Seoul. Without that alliance, you lose everything your father built." "Then we move the wedding up," Do-yun said. "It's already scheduled for Saturday," Min-so replied. 3 days from now. Can you be ready?" Do-yun looked at his father's grave, at the expensive flowers already wilting in the rain, at the empire built on violence and fear and ruthless calculation. "I don't have a choice," he said. But he was wrong. Nobody has choices when fate decides to flip the board. Later that night, Do-yun sat in his father's study, now his study, surrounded by dark wood and leather and the faint smell of expensive whiskey. He was going through documents when his second-in-command, Jin-ho, entered looking like he'd seen a ghost. "We have a situation," Jin-ho said. Do-yun didn't look up from the papers. "Define situation." "There's a woman at the gate. She's demanding to see you. She has documents, legal documents, marriage documents." That got Do-yun's attention. "What?" She claims she's your wife, Jinho said carefully. She has a marriage certificate, signed and registered, from 6 months ago. The room went very cold. That's impossible. That's what I told her, but boss, the documents look legitimate and she's not going anywhere. Du-Yun stood, his mind racing through possibilities. A scam, an enemy's ploy, some desperate woman trying to extort money. Show me, he said. They pulled up the security feed on the computer. The screen flickered to life, showing the front gate camera. And there she was. Zena Daniels stood in front of the camera with her arms crossed, rain plastering her hair to her face, her expression one of pure defiance mixed with something that looked like desperation. She was beautiful in a way that made Du-Yun forget to breathe for a moment. Curvy, confident, with dark skin that gleamed in the security lights, and eyes that seemed to look directly through the camera into his soul. Who the hell is she? Du-Yun demanded. According to her ID, she's American, Zena Daniels, 26 years old. She flew in this morning.
Du-Yun's mind was spinning. 6 months ago, he'd been in Los Angeles on business. His father had sent him to oversee a deal with their American contacts, something routine. He'd stayed 3 weeks, and he'd been drugged at a party. The memory came back in pieces. A high-end hotel, too much champagne, a woman with a kind smile helping him to a room, then nothing. He'd woken up the next morning with a splitting headache and a gap in his memory the size of an ocean. "Get her inside," Du-Yun said quietly. "Conference room, now." Zena was drenched and furious when they finally let her in. She'd been standing at that gate for 40 minutes while they made their calls and checked their protocols, and her patience had run out somewhere around minute 15. The mansion was exactly what she'd expected. Obscene wealth displayed with subtle taste, the kind of place where even the doorknobs probably cost more than her entire education. Men in suits watched her from doorways, their hands hovering near concealed weapons. She ignored them all. They led her to a conference room with a table that could seat 20. She remained standing. When Lee Do-Yun walked in, Zena felt her heart skip despite her anger. Photos hadn't done him justice. He was tall, lean with coiled strength, his features sharp and aristocratic. But it was his eyes that stopped her. They were intelligent, dangerous, and currently looking at her like she was a puzzle he intended to solve before deciding to destroy. "Miss Daniels," he said in perfect English, his accent barely noticeable, "you're making quite the dramatic entrance." "I wouldn't have to if you'd answered any of my emails," Zena shot back, "or my calls, or the registered letter I sent through 3 different law firms." "I don't know you," Do-Yun said flatly. "Well, that's awkward," Zena replied, pulling a folder from her bag despite the rain damage, "because according to the state of California and the Republic of Korea, you married me 6 months ago." She slapped the documents on the table. Do-Yun picked them up, his expression unreadable as he scanned the pages. Marriage certificate, witness signatures, official stamps, and his signature, unmistakably his handwriting, despite the slight shakiness that suggested intoxication. "This is impossible," he said finally. "And yet here we are," Zena said. "Look, I don't want to be here any more than you want me here. I came to Seoul to get this annulled, to put this nightmare behind me, but your lawyers keep ghosting me, and now I find out you're getting married in 3 days, while you're already legally married to me?" Do-Yun's eyes narrowed. "How much do you want?" "Excuse me?" "For this scam, for whatever con you're running. Name your price." Zena felt rage flash through her. "You think I flew 8,000 miles to extort you? I'm a graduate student, not a criminal. I want a divorce, or an annulment, whatever makes this legal mess disappear." "Then why not just sign the papers?" Do-Yun asked. "Because your lawyers won't send them," Zena shouted. "I've been trying for months. Every firm I contact in Korea either can't help me or won't help me. And now I know why. You're some kind of crime lord, aren't you? The kind of person whose problems just disappear." The room went very quiet. Jingho's hand moved toward his weapon. Do-Yun raised a hand to stop him. "I'm not a crime lord," Do-Yun said carefully. "I'm a businessman." "Right," Zena said, "and I'm the Queen of England. Listen, I don't care what you do or who you are. I just want this fixed, today, now, before you commit bigamy and I become an unwitting accomplice. Do-yeon studied her for a long moment. She didn't flinch under his gaze, didn't back down, didn't show fear. It was interesting. Most people who ended up in this room left broken. Jingho, Do-yeon said quietly, verify these documents. Use every resource we have. I want to know if they're real, how they were filed, and who else knows about them. Yes, boss. You're staying here tonight, Do-yeon said. Like hell I am. You're staying here, Do-yeon repeated, his voice dropping to something dangerous. Because if this is real, then my wedding in 3 days becomes a massive problem. And if it's a scam, then you're not walking out of here until I know who sent you and why. Xena felt a chill run down her spine. She'd known coming here was risky, but she was desperate. Now she was standing in a mansion full of armed men with a man who looked at her like she was either a threat or an asset to be acquired. You're not my prisoner, Do-yeon said. You're my guest. There's a difference. Jingho will show you to a room. You'll have everything you need. Tomorrow, we will figure out what happens next. Before Xena could argue, Do-yeon walked out. The door closed behind him with a finality that made her stomach drop. By sunrise, Do-yeon had the truth, and it was worse than he had imagined. The marriage was real, completely, legally, undeniably real. 6 months ago, at that party in Los Angeles, someone had drugged him, not to rob him or kill him, but for something far more calculated. They'd arranged for him to marry Xena Daniels in a small chapel, with just enough legal witnesses to make it binding. The marriage was registered in California and, through an international filing, in Korea as well. Who did this? Do-yeon demanded, staring at the documents spread across his desk. Jingho hesitated. Boss, the witnesses are listed. I've tracked 2 of them. Both were paid by a shell company, and that company traces back to someone you know. Who? Your uncle, Lee Kwon-soo. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Kwon-soo was his father's younger brother, ambitious and vicious, the one most likely to challenge Do-yeon's succession. He set me up, Do-yeon said slowly. 6 months ago, he knew my father's health was failing. He knew there would be a succession, so he created a trap, a legal trap that would explode right when I needed legitimacy most. If you marry Park Ji-won while already married to Xena, you'll be committing bigamy, Jingho said. Your uncle can use that to destroy you. Criminal charges, scandal, the council would never accept you as leader. But if you stay married to Xena, you lose the Park family alliance. Either way, you lose. Do-yeon's mind was racing. His uncle had played this perfectly. The marriage to Xena was designed to be discovered at the worst possible moment, creating chaos and weakness. And now, 3 days before his wedding, with the council meeting looming, he had to make an impossible choice. What about the girl? Jingho asked. Xena, how much does she know? She claims she doesn't know anything, Do-yeon said. She was drugged too. She woke up married and has been trying to fix it ever since. Do you believe her? Do-yeon thought about the way Xena had stood in his conference room, drenched and defiant, demanding justice. She hadn't shown fear, hadn't asked for money, hadn't played any of the games he was used to. She'd simply wanted the truth. Yes, he said finally, I believe her, which makes her a victim in this and also my biggest problem. What are you going to do? Do-yeon stood, walking to the window that overlooked the estate gardens. Dawn was breaking, painting the sky in shades of gold and blood. In 3 days, he was supposed to marry Park Ji-won and secure his throne, but now there was Xena, an impossible complication he couldn't solve with violence or money. I don't know yet, he admitted, but Jingho, I need you to do something for me. Find out everything about Xena Daniels, where she came from, who she is, what her life was like before this, everything. Why? Do-yeon's reflection in the window looked haunted. Because if I can't get rid of this marriage, I need to understand the woman I'm apparently stuck with.
Zena awoke in a bedroom that probably cost more than her parents' house. Silk sheets, imported furniture, a view of gardens that looked like something from a period drama. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then the memory crashed back. She was in Seoul, in a mansion owned by a man who might be a mobster, who she was apparently married to, and who looked at her like she was a chess piece he hadn't figured out how to capture yet. A knock on the door made her jump. "Come in," she called, pulling on the robe that had been left for her. A woman in her 50s entered, her hanbok elegant and traditional, her expression one of complete disapproval. "Miss Daniels," she said in English, her accent thick, "I am Park Min-so, Lee Do-yeon's mother." Zena's stomach dropped. "Mrs. Lee, I can explain." "You're the American," Min-so interrupted, her eyes scanning Zena from head to toe in a way that made Zena feel like she'd been found lacking. "The one claiming to be my son's wife." "I'm not claiming anything," Zena said, trying to keep her voice steady. "It's legally documented. I didn't want this any more than he did." "Then leave," Min-so said simply. "Get on a plane. Go back to America. Forget this ever happened." "I can't, not without a legal dissolution of the marriage." Min-so's expression hardened. "My son is getting married in 3 days, to a woman of proper standing and family, a woman who understands our world and her place in it. You are an inconvenience, a mistake, nothing more." The words stung more than Zena wanted to admit. "I understand you're protective of your son, but this isn't my fault. Someone set this up, set both of us up, and we're trying to fix it." "You don't belong here," Min-so said, her voice dropping to something cold and final. "You don't belong in our family, in our world, in our country. You're an outsider, a black girl who thinks she can waltz into our lives and disrupt everything we've built. But you can't. You won't. I'll make sure of it." The racism was blatant, unapologetic, designed to wound. Zena felt anger rise in her chest, hot and fierce. "I don't want to be part of your family," she said quietly. "I don't want your son's name or his money or his world. I want out. But until that happens legally, I'm here, and no amount of prejudice or threats is going to change the law." Min-so's expression hardened with something dangerous. "You think the law protects you? You think papers and signatures matter in our world? Child, the law is whatever we say it is, and right now it says you don't exist." She turned and walked out, leaving Zena shaking with rage and something that felt uncomfortably like fear. An hour later, Zena was summoned to Do-yeon's office. She went, still angry, still off balance from the encounter with her mother. Do-yeon was standing by his desk, looking like he hadn't slept. Coffee sat untouched beside him. When she entered, his eyes met hers, and something passed between them, some recognition of shared frustration. "Sit," he said. It wasn't quite a command, but it wasn't a request either. Zena remained standing. "Your mother just told me I don't belong here. Actually, she said I don't belong in your country, so maybe we should skip the prelatures and get to the part where you tell me how fast I can get out of your life." Do-yeon's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "My mother said that?" "Word for word." "Well, she said a lot of things. Most of them designed to make me feel small and unwelcome and wrong for daring to exist in her proximity." Do-yeon was quiet for a moment. "My mother is traditional and protective." "Your mother is a racist," Zena said bluntly. "But that's not my problem. My problem is this marriage. Can we dissolve it or not?" "It's complicated," Do-yeon said. "That's not an answer." Do-yeon moved to the window, his back to her. "Someone arranged this marriage deliberately. They wanted to create a scandal, to sabotage my succession at the worst possible moment. The marriage is legal, properly filed, and currently standing in the way of an alliance I need to survive the next week." "So divorce me," Zena said. "Today, now, whatever it takes." "Korean divorce law requires a 6-month waiting period for foreign marriages," Do-yeon said.
And an annulment would require proof that the marriage was fraudulent, which might bring criminal charges against both of us for fraud, even though we were victims. Xena felt her hope crumbling. So, I'm stuck here? We're stuck together, Do-yeon corrected. He turned to face her. I have a proposition. I'm listening. My wedding is in 3 days. I can't cancel it without losing everything my father built, but I also can't go through with it while legally married to you. So here's what I'm proposing. You stay, you attend the wedding, and when the bride arrives, you reveal yourself. Xena stared at him. You want me to crash your wedding? I want you to save me from it, Do-yeon said. If you appear with legal proof of our marriage, the wedding can't proceed. It gives me time to handle the situation, to outmaneuver my uncle, to find another solution. In exchange, I'll pay for the best lawyers in the country to handle your dissolution. You'll leave Seoul with everything resolved and enough money to finish your studies without debt. You want me to be the bad guy, Xena said slowly. To be the woman who ruins your perfect arranged marriage, to be the villain in your family's drama. I want you to be the truth, Do-yeon said. You are my wife, legally. That's not villainous, it's factual. Xena laughed, but there was no humor in it. Your mother already hates me. Your fiancé will hate me. Your entire family will see me as the outsider who destroyed their plans. And you'll get to play the victim, the man trapped by circumstances. Yes, Do-yeon said simply. That's exactly what will happen. But you'll also get what you want. Freedom, money, and a dissolution handled by the best legal team in Asia. 3 days of discomfort for a clean break. Xena wanted to say no, wanted to tell him to solve his own problems, but she was thousands of miles from home, trapped in a legal nightmare, and he was offering a solution that, while humiliating, was also practical. What if your family tries to hurt me, she asked, after I ruin the wedding? What if your mother decides I'm better off disappeared? Do-yeon's expression went hard. Nothing will happen to you. You have my word. You'll be under my protection until you leave Korea. The word of a crime lord, Xena said. How reassuring. The word of your husband, Do-yeon replied. Like it or not, that means something, at least for the next 3 days. Xena closed her eyes. She thought about the student loans, the delayed graduation, the months of frustration trying to fix this mess alone. This was a terrible idea, but it was also her only option. Fine, I'll do it. But after the wedding, I want a contract, legal, binding, promising that you'll handle the dissolution and that I'll walk away clean. Agreed. And I want your mother nowhere near me. Something that might have been amusement flickered across Do-yeon's face. I'll do my best, but she's persistent. So am I, Xena said. For the first time since meeting him, Do-yeon smiled. It was small, barely there, but it transformed his face from dangerously handsome to something that made Xena's heart stutter. I'm starting to see that. The next 2 days were surreal. Xena was given a suite in the mansion, clothes that fit perfectly despite no one asking her size, and an assistant who appeared whenever she needed anything. She was also watched constantly. Men in suits tracked her movements, cameras followed her through hallways, and she never forgot for a moment that she was a prisoner in everything but name. Do-yeon was busy with wedding preparations and council meetings. Xena caught glimpses of him in passing, always in a suit, always surrounded by men who looked at him with respect or fear, and always moving with the kind of controlled violence that came from a lifetime of danger. Xena did research when she was alone. American and Korean news articles painted a picture of the Lee family as legitimate businessmen with rumored connections to organized crime. Do-yeon's father had been influential in politics and business, with tentacles reaching into everything from real estate to entertainment to import-export. But there were darker rumors, too. Disappeared rivals, sudden business bankruptcies, witnesses who recanted testimony. Do-yeon was set to inherit an empire built on blood and money, and she was the unexpected variable threatening to topple it all. On the second night, she couldn't sleep. She wandered the mansion's gardens, thinking the guards would stop her, but they just watched from a distance. The night air was cool, the gardens illuminated by subtle landscape lighting that made everything look like a film set. "You should be inside," a voice said from the shadows. Xena spun to find Do-yeon standing near a reflecting pool, his suit jacket discarded, his shirt sleeves rolled up. He looked exhausted and human in a way she hadn't seen before. "I couldn't sleep," she said. "Neither could I." He gestured to the bench beside the pool. "Join me?" Against her better judgment, Xena sat. The distance between them was careful, deliberate. They both stared at the reflection of the moon on the water. "I've been thinking about that night," Do-yeon said after a long silence. "In Los Angeles. I can't remember most of it, but I remember you helped me. Someone had drugged my drink, and you helped me to a room. You were kind." Xena was surprised he remembered that. "I thought you were just drunk. I didn't realize it was more serious until later." "You could have left me," Do-yeon said. "Most people would have. But you stayed to make sure I was safe. And then someone took advantage of both of us, used your kindness and my vulnerability to create this mess." "Your uncle," Xena said. Do-yeon glanced at her sharply. "You've been doing research." "I'm not stupid. Your assistant mentioned the shell company. It doesn't take a genius to connect the dots." "No," Do-yeon agreed. "It doesn't. My uncle wanted to sabotage me. He succeeded, and now we're both paying the price." "What happens after the wedding?" Xena asked. "After I crash it and reveal everything, what happens to you?" Do-yeon was quiet. "I'll have to find another way to secure power. Another alliance, another strategy. It'll be harder without the Park family, but not impossible. I've been training for this my entire life. I'll survive." "And what happens to your fiancé? Park Ji-won? Does she know about me?" "No," Do-yeon said. "She thinks she's marrying a free man. She'll be humiliated when you appear." "Does that bother you?" Do-yeon turned to look at Xena directly. In the moonlight, his eyes were softer than she'd seen them. "Yes," he admitted. "Ji-won doesn't deserve this. She's innocent in all of this. But I can't protect her and myself. So I'm choosing survival." "That's honest," Xena said. "I'm always honest about who I am," Do-yeon replied. "I'm not a good man, Xena. I'm a man who does what's necessary to survive and maintain power. I'm telling you this so you understand. When you walk into that wedding hall, you're not disrupting something beautiful. You're disrupting a business transaction. Nothing more." But something in his voice suggested it was more complicated than that. Xena had seen the wedding preparations, had glimpsed the bride's photo in the hallways. Park Ji-won was beautiful and elegant, exactly the kind of woman who belonged in this world, and she was about to have her life destroyed because of a marriage ceremony Xena didn't even remember. "I feel like a monster," Xena said quietly. "You're not the monster," Do-yeon said. "My uncle is. I am. You're just trying to survive. That's not monstrous, that's human." They sat in silence after that, two people trapped in circumstances neither had chosen, watching the moon reflect on water and wondering how different their lives might have been if fate had been kinder. The wedding hall was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings, white flowers covered every surface, and guests in expensive formal wear filled the ornate space. Xena watched from a side room, her heart hammering. She was wearing the emerald green dress Do-yeon's assistant had provided. It was stunning, fitted to her curves perfectly, designed to make a statement. Her hair was styled, her makeup flawless. She looked like she belonged at a high society event. She just didn't belong at this one. Through the window, she could see the ceremony beginning. Park Ji-won walked down the aisle in a traditional white hanbok, her face serene behind a delicate veil. She looked like a painting, like perfection itself. Xena felt sick.
Do-yoon stood at the altar in a black tuxedo, his expression unreadable. His mother sat in the front row, her face radiating satisfaction. Behind them, rows of guests represented the most powerful families in Seoul's underworld, legitimate business, and political spheres. This was the wedding that would secure Do-yoon's power, and Zena was about to destroy it. "It's time," Jinho said from the doorway. "Are you ready?" "No," Zena thought. "I'm not ready. I'll never be ready for this." But she nodded anyway. They walked through side corridors, timing their entrance perfectly. The officiant was beginning the ceremony when Zena reached the main doors. She could hear his voice echoing through the space, formal and solemn. "If anyone has objections to this union, speak now or forever hold your peace." Zena pushed open the doors. The sound was like a gunshot in the silence. Every head turned. Park Ji-won froze mid-step. Do-yoon's eyes found Zena across the distance, and something passed between them, some moment of shared understanding that this was it. This was the point of no return. Zena walked down the aisle. Her heels clicked against the marble floor, each step echoing. She could feel hundreds of eyes on her, could hear gasps and whispers starting to ripple through the crowd. Park Min-seo stood, her face transforming from satisfaction to rage. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded. Zena kept walking, until she reached the altar. She looked at Ji-won, who was staring at her with confusion and dawning horror. She looked at Do-yoon, whose expression remained carefully neutral. "I'm sorry," Zena said, "you're carrying in the acoustically perfect hall, but this wedding can't proceed." "Who are you?" Ji-won whispered. Zena pulled the documents from her clutch. "My name is Zena Daniels, and 6 months ago, I married Lee Do-yoon in Los Angeles. The marriage is legal, registered, and currently valid in both the United States and the Republic of Korea." The hall erupted into chaos. Want to see what happens next? Comment below with your theories, and don't forget to like and subscribe because this story is about to get so much darker. The wedding hall descended into pandemonium. Guests were shouting, security guards were reaching for weapons, and Park Ji-won stood frozen at the altar, her perfect composure shattered like crystal glasses someone had dropped in shock.
"This is impossible," Park Min-seo hissed, storming toward Zena. "This is a lie." "It's not a lie," Zena said, holding up the documents. "It's registered with the court. You can verify it yourself." Ji-won's father, Park Sang-min, rose from his seat like a mountain gaining sentience. He was a man who had built his fortune on shipping lanes and government contracts, and his face was currently the color of dried blood. "Lee Do-yeon," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Explain this." Do-yeon stepped forward, his expression carefully composed. 6 months ago, I was drugged and manipulated into a marriage I don't remember. I learned about it 3 days ago when Miss Daniels appeared at my gate. I have been working to have it dissolved, but the legal process takes time." "Time?" Ji-won's voice was barely a whisper, but everyone heard it. "You've known for 3 days and you said nothing?" "I was trying to protect you from this," Do-yeon said, which was partially true and entirely insufficient. "Protect me?" Ji-won's voice rose, cracking with emotion. "You were going to marry me while already married to another woman. That's not protection, that's humiliation." She tore off her veil, threw it on the ground, and ran. Her bridesmaids scrambled after her. The guests erupted into louder chaos. Park Sang-min looked like he wanted to commit murder. "This alliance is finished," he said coldly. "Consider our agreement void, and consider yourself an enemy." He walked out, taking half the guests with him. The remaining attendees looked uncertain, waiting to see which way the power would shift. Park Min-seo turned her fury on Zena. "You," she spat. "You've destroyed everything. You will pay for this." "Mrs. Lee," Zena said, trying to keep her voice steady despite the fear crawling up her spine. "I didn't want this. I'm a victim in this too." "You're a weapon," Min-seo countered. "Someone's weapon aimed at my son, and weapons get disposed of."
That's enough, Mother, Du-yun said, his voice carrying an edge of warning. Don't defend her, Min-so shouted. She's ruined us. The council will never accept you now. You've lost the Park Alliance, you've created a scandal, and you're legally tied to this outsider. The word outsider carried layers of meaning, all of them ugly. Xena felt every eye in the room on her, judging her, blaming her, seeing her as the foreman intruder who had destroyed their carefully laid plans. Everyone out, Du-yun said suddenly. Now. The wedding is over. Go home. The remaining guests filed out, whispering among themselves. News of this disaster would spread through Seoul's underworld within hours. By tomorrow, everyone would know that Lee Du-yun's succession was in jeopardy. When the hall finally cleared, it was just Du-yun, Xena, Min-so, and Jin-ho remaining. The silence was deafening. You've killed your father's legacy, Min-so said to Du-yun. Everything he built, everything he sacrificed for, it's gone because of her. It's gone because Uncle Kwon-soo sabotaged me. Xena is just the tool he used. Then get rid of the tool, Min-so said coldly. I gave my word she'd be safe, Du-yun replied. Your word means nothing if you're dead, his mother snapped. The council meets tomorrow. They'll use this disaster to deny your succession. Your uncles will divide the territories, and you'll be lucky if they let you live. She swept out of the hall, leaving a wake of cold fury behind her. Jin-ho approached carefully. Boss, she's right. This is bad. The Park family was our strongest alliance. Without them... I know, Du-yun interrupted. He turned to Xena, his expression unreadable. You should go back to the estate. Lock yourself in your room. Don't open the door for anyone but me. Du-yun, Xena started. Not now, his voice said tightly with controlled fury. Not at her, she realized. At himself, at his uncle, at the situation. Just go, please. Xena went. As the car drove her back to the estate, she watched Seoul pass by the windows and wondered what she'd just done. She'd known crashing the wedding would cause chaos. She hadn't realized she might have just signed Du-yun's death warrant. That night, Du-yun didn't sleep. He spent hours in his office, making calls, calling in favors, trying to salvage what he could from the wreckage. But Park Sang-min wouldn't take his calls. Neither would the other families he'd counted on for support. His uncle Kwon-soo, however, called him. Nephew, Kwon-soo's voice was smooth as oil. I heard about the wedding. Such a shame, such a public embarrassment. You did this, Du-yun said flatly. You arranged that marriage in Los Angeles. You waited until the worst possible moment to have it discovered. I don't know what you're talking about, Kwon-soo said, his tone dripping with false innocence. But I'll tell you what I do know. The council meets tomorrow, and they're going to vote on succession. Given today's disaster, I'd say your chances aren't looking good. What do you want? Want? I want what's best for the family, and what's best is someone stable leading us, someone who doesn't create international scandals by secretly marrying American tourists. She wasn't a tourist, she was drugged, just like I was. This was a setup. Can you prove that? Kwon-soo asked. Can you prove you didn't willingly marry this American woman and then try to cover it up with an arranged marriage to Park Ji-won? Because from where I'm sitting, you look like a man who makes reckless decisions and lies to cover them up. Not exactly leadership material. Do-yoon's hand tightened on the phone. I'll fight you. At the council. I'll expose what you did. Go ahead, Kwon-soo said pleasantly. But accusations without proof are just noise. And tomorrow, when the council votes, all that noise will mean nothing. He hung up. Do-yoon stared at the phone, rage and frustration warring inside him. His uncle had played this perfectly. Even if Do-yoon suspected the truth, he couldn't prove it. And without proof, he just looked incompetent. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Come in, he called. Xena entered, still in the emerald green dress. She looked exhausted and worried. I couldn't sleep, she said, and I keep thinking about what happened, about what I caused. You didn't cause this, Do-yoon said. My uncle did. But I'm the one who walked into that wedding hall, Xena said. I'm the one who humiliated Park Ji-won and destroyed our alliance. That's on me. Do-yoon studied her. Most people in her position would be defensive, would be blaming everyone but themselves. But Xena was taking responsibility for her part in this disaster, even though she'd been manipulated into it. Sit, he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. She sat. They looked at each other across the expensive wood, two strangers bound together by circumstances neither had chosen. Tell me about your life, Do-yeon said suddenly. What? Your life, before this. Who are you when you're not crashing weddings and disrupting successions? Xena hesitated, then smiled slightly. I'm boring. I'm a graduate student studying international law. I live in a tiny apartment in California. I work 3 part-time jobs to pay my tuition. My family thinks I'm crazy for wanting to be a human rights lawyer instead of something practical that pays better. Why human rights law? Because I've seen what happens when people have no one to fight for them, Xena said. When the system crushes them and they have no voice, no protection. I want to be that voice, that protection. Do-yeon was quiet for a moment. You know what I do, right? What my family does. I have a pretty good idea, Xena said. You're not exactly a beacon of human rights. No, Do-yeon agreed. I'm not. I've done things that would make you hate me if you knew the details. I've hurt people. I've destroyed lives. I'm the kind of person you'd fight against in court. Probably, Xena said, but right now you're also the man I'm legally married to, and believe it or not, I don't want you dead, even if you are everything I stand against. Do-yeon laughed, surprising himself. You're remarkably pragmatic for an idealist. I have to be, Xena said. Idealism without pragmatism is just fantasy. They fell into silence. Outside, Seoul glittered in the darkness, millions of people living their lives unaware that in this office, 2 people were trying to figure out how to survive the next 24 hours. The council meets tomorrow, Do-yeon said finally. They'll vote on succession, and given today's disaster, I'll probably lose. What happens if you lose? Best case, I'm exiled, stripped of power and sent away. Worst case, I don't leave the building alive. Xena felt ice in her stomach. They'd kill you? Power in my world isn't won by votes alone, Do-yeon said. Sometimes it's won by making sure your rivals can't compete, and some of my uncles are very good at that. I'm sorry, Xena whispered. I'm so sorry. If I'd known... What, you wouldn't have come? You'd have stayed in America and remained trapped in a marriage you never wanted? Do-yeon shook his head. No, you did the right thing. You fought for yourself. That's not something to apologize for. Even if it costs you everything? Do-yeon met her eyes. Even then. They talked for hours that night, about everything and nothing, about Xena's childhood in Los Angeles, growing up between 2 cultures, always feeling like an outsider, about Do-yeon's training under his father, the brutality of learning to lead through fear and violence, about dreams neither of them would probably achieve. Somewhere around 3 in the morning, Xena fell asleep in the chair. Do-yeon watched her for a long moment, this woman who had accidentally walked into his life and destroyed it. She was beautiful even as she slept, her face finally relaxed, her guard down. He should hate her, should resent her, but he didn't. Instead, he felt something he couldn't quite name, some shift in his perception that made him see her not as a problem to solve, but as a person to know. It was dangerous. He couldn't afford attachments. Not now, not when everything was falling apart. But he carefully picked her up anyway, carried her to her room, and tucked her into bed like she was something precious instead of the catalyst of his destruction. Xena awoke to find herself in her bed with no memory of how she got there. Then she remembered, falling asleep in Do-yeon's office, talking until exhaustion claimed her. He must have carried her. The thought made something warm bloom in her chest, which was absurd. This man was a criminal. His world was built on violence. She should be afraid of him not developing feelings. But feelings didn't follow logic, and Xena was starting to realize that Lee Do-yeon was more complicated than the monsters she'd imagined. A knock on the door brought Jin Ho's voice. Ms. Daniels, the council meets in 2 hours. The boss wants you to stay here. Don't leave this room for any reason. Why? Zena called back. Because the estate isn't safe today. There are factions forming, people making moves. Boss wants you protected. Zena felt dread settle in her stomach. What's going to happen at this meeting? Jinho was quiet for a moment. Honestly, I don't know, but it won't be pretty. After he left, Zena paced her room like a caged animal. She could hear increased activity in the estate. More guards, more vehicles, the sound of preparations that felt ominous. She wanted to see Do-yeon, to talk to him before whatever was about to happen, but she'd been told to stay put. So she did, and she waited. The council convened in a private room at one of Seoul's most exclusive hotels. 20 men sat around a massive table, representing the most powerful families in the organization. Do-yeon's father had led them for 30 years. Now they would decide who would lead them next. Do-yeon entered the room with Jin-ho. His uncle Kwon-soo was already there, along with 2 other uncles and various other power players. The atmosphere was tense enough to cut. "Let's begin," said the eldest council member, Park Byung-ho, who served as mediator. "We're here to vote on succession to leadership following Lee Tae-jin's death. Lee Do-yeon, as his heir, you have the floor to make your case." Do-yeon stood. "My father spent 3 decades building our influence. I've been trained since childhood to continue his legacy. I understand the business, the politics, the necessary brutality of leadership. I'm ready." "Are you?" Kwon-soo interrupted. "Because from where we're sitting, you look like a man who can't control his own life, much less an empire. Yesterday's wedding disaster proves that." "That was sabotage," Do-yeon said evenly. "Someone arranged a fraudulent marriage to undermine me at a critical moment." "Someone?" Kwon-soo smiled. "Or did you simply make a drunken mistake and try to cover it up?" "The marriage was arranged while I was drugged," Do-yeon said. "It was a setup." "Can you prove that?" another uncle asked. "I'm working on it." "Working on it isn't good enough," Kwon-soo said, standing. "Gentlemen, look at the facts. Lee Do-yeon secretly married an American woman, hid it from his family, and attempted to commit bigamy through an arranged marriage. When exposed, he caused a massive scandal that cost us the Park family alliance. Is this the kind of leadership we want?" "I didn't hide anything," Do-yeon said. "I learned about the marriage 3 days ago. I've been trying to resolve it." "By crashing your own wedding?" Kwon-soo laughed. "That's your resolution? Creating the biggest scandal this family has seen in decades?" The council members were murmuring among themselves. Do-yeon could see which way the wind was blowing. His uncle had poisoned them against him before the meeting even started. "I move that we vote," Kwon-soo said. "All in favor of Lee Do-yeon's succession, raise your hands." 5 hands went up. Do-yeon's supporters, the ones who owed him or his father too much to vote otherwise. All opposed? 12 hands, more than enough to deny him. "The succession is denied," Park Byung-ho said. "Lee Do-yeon, you are stripped of your father's position and territories. The council will divide leadership responsibilities among—" "No." The word came from the doorway. Everyone turned. Park Ji-won stood there in a simple black dress, her face composed but her eyes hard. Behind her stood her father, Park Sang-min, and a dozen of their most dangerous men. "The Park family was invited to observe," Ji-won said, walking into the room, "and we have something to say." "The meeting is over," Kwon-soo said dismissively. "The vote is complete." "The vote is premature," Ji-won said. She looked at Do-yeon and something passed between them, some understanding that made Do-yeon's stomach clench. "Because I have information that changes everything." She pulled out a folder and placed it on the table. 6 months ago, someone hired a shell company to arrange a fraudulent marriage between Lee Do-yeon and Zena Daniels. That someone was Lee Kwon-soo. The room erupted. Kwon-soo's face went pale. "That's a lie." "Is it?" Ji-won opened the folder, revealing documents. "These are financial records showing payments from your offshore accounts to the shell company. These are witness statements from the people you hired in Los Angeles. And this is video footage from the hotel showing your men drugging both Lee Do-yeon and Zena Daniels before forcing them into a marriage ceremony." She looked at the council. Lee Kuan-soo sabotaged his nephew's succession by creating a scandal designed to explode at the worst possible moment. He's the traitor here, not Lee Do-yeon. The council stared at the evidence. Park Sang-min stepped forward. My daughter spent 3 days investigating after the wedding disaster. She wanted to know the truth. And the truth is that Lee Do-yeon is a victim, not a conspirator. Why, Kwon-soo demanded, looking at Ji-won, why defend him after he humiliated you? Because I understand honor, Ji-won said quietly, and sabotaging someone through drugging and fraud isn't honorable, it's cowardly. Lee Do-yeon didn't choose to marry Zena Daniels, he was manipulated into it, but he chose to protect her anyway, even at great cost to himself. That shows character. She turned to Do-yeon. I won't marry you, that alliance is broken, but I won't let injustice stand either. You deserve your father's position, and Lee Kuan-soo deserves punishment for what he did. The council looked at Kuan-soo, whose face had gone from pale to red. This is fabricated evidence, he shouted. Then prove it, Park Byung-ho said coldly, because if it's real, you've committed treason against your own family. I'll prove nothing, Kuan-soo snarled. He pulled a gun. Everything happened at once. Do-yeon moved toward his uncle. Jin-ho drew his weapon. Kuan-soo fired. The bullet caught Do-yeon. Zena was in her room when Jin-ho burst in, his face ashen. Get dressed, he said. Now, we're going to the hospital. What happened? Zena demanded, fear making her voice sharp. Boss was shot. Council meeting went bad. He's in surgery. The world tilted. Zena grabbed her shoes, her hands shaking. Is he? I don't know, but we need to go, now. The hospital was controlled chaos when they arrived. Guards everywhere, doctors shouting, the Park family and half the council members filling the waiting area. Zena pushed through them all, ignoring the stares and whispers, until she found Park Min-soo. Where is he? Zena demanded. Min-soo looked at her with eyes full of tears and rage. Surgery. The bullet hit his lung. They don't know if he'll survive. Zena felt her knees weaken.
This is my fault. If I hadn't crashed the wedding... If you hadn't crashed the wedding, Kwon-soo's plan would have worked differently, Ji-won said, appearing beside them. He would have found another way to destroy Do-yoon. This isn't your fault. It feels like my fault, Zena whispered. They waited for 6 hours. 6 hours of pacing, of silence, of prayers from people who didn't usually pray. Park Ji-won explained what had happened at the council, how she'd investigated and found the proof, how Kwon-soo had panicked and shot Do-yoon before being killed by Jin-ho. Why did you help him? Zena asked Ji-won. After he humiliated you? Ji-won smiled sadly. Because he's a better man than he thinks he is, and because I've always known our marriage was business, not love. I wanted him to have a fair chance. He deserves that much. Finally, a doctor emerged. He's stable, the surgeon said. The next 48 hours are critical, but he survived the surgery. He's strong. The relief was overwhelming. Zena found herself crying, which was ridiculous because she barely knew this man. But she'd crashed his wedding, destroyed his alliance, and nearly gotten him killed. And somewhere in the middle of all that chaos, she'd started to care about him. Can I see him? She asked. The doctor hesitated, looking at Min-soo for permission. Let her, Min-soo said quietly. She's his wife. Legally. She has the right. Do-yoon woke to find Zena asleep in the chair beside his hospital bed, her hand almost touching his. He studied her face in the dim light, this woman who had walked into his life and turned everything upside down. He should be angry, should blame her, but he didn't. Because somewhere between the wedding disaster and the bullet, he'd realized something. She'd been trying to save him all along, not from his uncle's bullet, but from a loveless marriage, from an alliance built on lies, from becoming the kind of man his father had been. You're awake, Zena said, her eyes opening. How do you feel? Like I got shot, Do-yoon said, his voice rough. That's because you did get shot, you idiot. Tears were running down her face. You almost died. I know, Ji-won told me. She saved me. Ironic, isn't it? The woman whose wedding I ruined saved my life? She's a better person than any of us, Zena said. And I'm so sorry. This is all my fault.
Stop, Do-yoon said. Stop apologizing for things that aren't your fault. You didn't drug me in Los Angeles. You didn't arrange a fraudulent marriage. You didn't shoot me. All you did was try to fix a situation you didn't create. I destroyed your alliance. The alliance was built on lies, Do-yoon said. Ji-won and I didn't love each other. We would have been miserable. You just accelerated the inevitable. Zena wiped her eyes. What happens now, to us, to this marriage? Do-yoon was quiet for a long moment. What do you want to happen? I don't know anymore, Zena admitted. Few days ago, I wanted out. I wanted to go home and forget this ever happened. Now, I don't know. Everything's changed. Yes, Do-yoon agreed. It has. The months that followed were a whirlwind. Do-yoon took her back to the estate, and they'd finally stopped fighting the magnetic pull between them. They didn't talk about the fact that their marriage, while starting as a fraud, was becoming something frighteningly real. Park Min-seo remained cold to Zena, but her open hostility had tempered into wary distance. She saw how her son looked at this foreign woman, saw how Zena had risked everything to save him, and couldn't quite maintain her hatred in the face of such devotion. One evening, 3 months after the council meeting, Do-yoon found Zena in the garden. She was staring at her phone, her expression troubled. What is it? He asked. My dean emailed. I've been away too long. I need to either come back and finish my degree or withdraw. I have to decide by the end of the week. Do-yoon felt his heart constrict. He'd known this moment was coming. What do you want to do? I don't know anymore, Zena admitted. Few days ago, the answer would have been obvious. Go home, finish school, build my career. But now? Now? Do-yoon prompted. Now, I don't know if I can leave you, which is terrifying, because you're still everything I stand against. You're still a criminal. You still operate in a world of violence and gray morality, but somehow I fell in love with you anyway. Do-yoon's breath caught. Zena. Don't, Zena said. Don't tell me you love me too unless you're willing to change, unless you're willing to meet me halfway. Because I can't stay in this world as it is. I can't watch you make decisions that hurt people and tell myself it's justified because I love you. That's not who I am. Do-yoon was quiet for a long moment. You're right, he said finally. You can't, and I won't ask you to. But Zena, I've been making changes. You've seen them. Legitimate businesses replacing illegal ones, reducing violence, working within the law when possible instead of outside it. Not fast enough, Zena said. Not enough to make a real difference. Then tell me what you need, Do-yoon said, moving closer. Tell me what would make you stay. Because I love you, and I don't want to lose you. Zena looked up at him, tears in her eyes. I need you to promise that you'll keep changing, that you'll use your power to build instead of destroy, that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you'll be someone I can be proud to stand beside, not just someone I love. 6 months later, Zena stood in front of her graduating class at Seoul National University. She'd transferred her credits, finished her degree remotely with occasional in-person classes, and was now one of the top students in the international law program. Do-yoon sat in the audience, wearing a suit that made him look more like a legitimate businessman than a crime lord, which increasingly was what he was becoming. The organization was transforming slowly but steadily, moving away from illegal operations and toward legitimate power. It wasn't perfect, there were still gray areas, still decisions that made Zena uncomfortable, but Do-yoon was trying, genuinely trying, to build something they could both be proud of. After the ceremony, they celebrated with dinner at a quiet restaurant. Do-yoon had a gift for her, a small box. If this is what I think it is, I'm going to be very upset, Zena said. It's not, Do-yoon assured her. Open it. Inside was a key. Zena looked at him, confused. It's the key to a new law office, Do-yoon explained. Downtown Seoul, prime location, set up and ready for you to start your human rights practice. My first legitimate investment in building something good. Zena's eyes filled with tears. Do-yoon, I know we're technically still married, he said, and I know we've been living in this strange limbo, not quite divorced, but not quite committed either.
But Zena, I don't want to be in limbo anymore. I want you, not just as my accidental wife, but as my chosen partner, the woman I deliberately choose every day. He pulled out another box. This one held a ring. I'm not asking you to marry me, Do-yeon said. We're already married. But I'm asking you to stay married to me, to make this choice consciously, knowing who I am, who I'm becoming, and who we could be together. Will you? Zena looked at the ring, then at the man holding it, the man who had started as an enemy and become her everything, the man who was trying to change an entire organization because she'd asked him to, the man who loved her enough to give her the choice he'd never given her before. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll stay married to you. I'll choose you every single day. Do-yeon slipped the ring on her finger and they kissed across the table. Two people who had crashed into each other's lives in the most chaotic way possible and somehow found love in the wreckage. Park Min-soo sat across from Zena in the garden, tea between them. Their relationship had thawed slowly over the months, from hostility to tolerance to something approaching respect. I owe you an apology, Min-soo said finally. Zena nearly dropped her cup. Mrs. Lee. No, let me speak, Min-soo interrupted. I was cruel to you, racist. I saw you as a threat to my son's legacy, to our family's tradition. I was wrong. She looked at Zena directly. You saved my son, not just from his uncle's bullet or his political schemes. You saved him from becoming his father. Do-yeon is building something better than what we had before, and it's because of you, because you refused to accept him as he was and demanded he be better. He chose to change, Zena said quietly. I just gave him a reason. That's the same thing, Min-soo replied, and I'm grateful. My son is happier than I've ever seen him. He's building an empire, yes, but one based on legitimate power and influence rather than fear. That's your influence. She paused. I judged you for your race, for being an outsider, for not fitting my image of what my son's wife should be. But you're exactly what he needed, and I'm sorry it took me so long to see that. Zena felt tears threatening. Thank you, she said. That means more than you know. It's been 5 years now, and Zena was a brand new woman. She stood at the window of her law office, looking out over Seoul. 5 years since she'd crashed that wedding in an emerald green dress. 5 years since her life had been turned upside down by a fraudulent marriage. The office was thriving. She'd built a reputation as a fierce human rights advocate, taking on cases others wouldn't touch. And she had backing from an unlikely source, the Lee organization, which had become one of Seoul's most powerful, legitimate business empires. Do-yeon entered carrying their 2-year-old daughter. Mama, the little girl squealed, reaching for Zena. Zena took her daughter, kissing her forehead. How was the park? She terrorized the other children, just like her mother. I don't terrorize people, Zena protested. You terrorized me. Crashed my wedding, upended my life, forced me to fall in love with you. Complete terrorism. You're ridiculous, Zena laughed. Do-yeon pulled them both into his arms. I'm yours. There's a difference. Later that evening, after their daughter was asleep, they sat on their balcony overlooking the city. Zena was reviewing case files. Do-yeon was working on his tablet, managing the various legitimate businesses he'd built. Do you ever regret it? Zena asked suddenly. Giving up the life you knew, the power you could have had if you'd stayed in the shadows? Do-yeon looked at her, really looked at her, this woman who had accidentally walked into his life and changed everything. Not once, he said, not for a single second.
Do-yeon replied, We've been inevitable since the moment you walked down that aisle. I just didn't know it yet. They sat in comfortable silence, watching Seoul sparkle below them. Two people who had been forced together by fraud and stayed together by choice. Two people who had built something beautiful from catastrophic beginnings. I love you, Zena said. I love you too, Do-yeon replied. My accidental wife, my deliberate choice, my everything. And in the city below, life continued. The Lee organization operated legitimately, employing thousands. Zena's law firm fought for those who had no voice.
Their daughter would grow up knowing both power and justice, strength and compassion. It wasn't the ending anyone would have predicted. The foreign woman who crashed the mafia boss's wedding should have been a tragedy, a cautionary tale about interfering in things you don't understand. Instead, it became a love story. Complicated, messy, unconventional, but real. Because sometimes the wrong person walks into your life at the wrong moment and becomes the right thing that ever happened to you. Sometimes the woman who destroys your carefully laid plans is the one who builds your future. Sometimes crashing the wedding is just the beginning. That's the thing about love. It doesn't care about your plans. It doesn't care about tradition or expectation or what should happen. It just happens. And when it does, when it crashes into your life like a woman in an emerald dress disrupting everything you thought you knew, the only choice is whether to fight it or embrace it. If this story made you believe in second chances and unexpected love, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and drop a comment telling me which moment hit you hardest. Because sometimes the best love stories start with disaster and end with forever. And sometimes the woman you never chose becomes the only choice you'll ever need.